Learn English through story. The hidden passion of the heart. In the heart of a sprawling metropolis, where ambitions rose as high as the glittering skyscrapers, lived a man named Daniel Price. Daniel had built a life that many admired. At 42, he was a top attorney at a prestigious corporate law firm, respected by colleagues and sought after by clients for his brilliant legal mind. His daily routine was predictable but impressive: a high-rise apartment, luxury suites, endless meetings, and dinners with influential people in the city. His life was a showcase of success, wealth, and outward fulfillment. But hidden beneath the surface of this polished exterior was a deep yearning, a passion that Daniel had long buried beneath years of professional obligation and societal expectations. The walls of his meticulously decorated apartment held no hint of the secret he harbored. Not even his closest friends or the women he dated knew of the part of him that had quietly been slipping away. Daniel had always wanted to be an artist. In his youth, Daniel's heart had belonged to painting. He'd spend hours in his parents' basement, lost in the world of color, texture, and expression. His paintings were raw, emotional, and unlike the structured life he would later lead. But as he grew older, the pressures of adulthood caught up with him. His father had dismissed his artistic dreams early on, insisting that painting was a hobby, not a career. His mother, though kinder, encouraged him to be practical, and society's demands took over from there. Law school beckoned with promises of stability and prestige, and Daniel, eager to prove himself, accepted the offer. He thrived in the legal world. Case after case, promotion after promotion, Daniel's success grew. But with every rung he climbed on the corporate ladder, he pushed his artistic dreams further down, as though success in law and passion in art could never coexist. In time, he stopped painting altogether. His easels and paints, once the tools of his happiness, gathered dust in a forgotten corner of his childhood home. One evening, after a particularly grueling day in court, Daniel returned to his apartment feeling restless. The legal victories, the congratulatory messages from his colleagues, the sense of accomplishment, and none of it filled the hollow space that had grown inside him. The thrill he once felt in his career had dulled, and his days had begun to blur together, one indistinguishable from the next. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the city lights. The world outside was alive, bustling with energy, but Daniel felt detached, like a spectator rather than a participant. His thoughts drifted back to the boy he had once been, the boy who would have cared little for the high-rise views and much more for the blank canvas waiting to be filled. Something stirred in him that night, a whisper from the past that had been silent for far too long. Without thinking, Daniel grabbed his phone and searched for the nearest art store. He hadn't picked up a brush in over 20 years, but the impulse was irresistible. The next morning, instead of heading straight to the office, Daniel found himself standing outside a small, quaint art supply shop tucked between two buildings on a quieter street of the city. He entered, the smell of oil paints and canvas overwhelming him with a strange sense of nostalgia. The elderly shopkeeper greeted him with a smile. "Can I help you find something?" she asked, noticing his hesitation. "I'm not sure," Daniel admitted, scanning the rows of paints and brushes. "It's been a long time since I've done this." The woman smiled knowingly. "It's never too late to start again." Daniel bought an assortment of supplies, a set of brushes, tubes of paint, and a small canvas. It felt strange, almost surreal, to hold them in his hands after so many years. He wasn't entirely sure what he was doing or why he was doing it, but something inside him had shifted. He returned home and set up a small workspace in a corner of his living room, far from the sleek, modern furnishings that filled the rest of the apartment. As he stared at the blank canvas, a flood of emotions rushed over him: anticipation, fear, excitement. For days, the canvas remained untouched. Daniel was busy with work, caught in the whirlwind of client meetings and court hearings. But each night, as he returned home, the canvas waited for him, beckoning him to return to the forgotten part of himself. Finally, on a quiet Saturday morning, he took a deep breath and began to paint. At first, the strokes were clumsy, hesitant. His hands, once so sure and confident, now felt foreign to the task. But slowly, something began to emerge. As he lost himself in the act of creation, Daniel felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a weight he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. The colors blended and clashed, the brush moving in ways he hadn't planned, but it felt right. It was messy, imperfect, but it was alive, just like the passion he had buried for so long. Hours passed, and when Daniel finally stepped back to look at his work, he was filled with a sense of satisfaction that he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't a masterpiece by any means, but it didn't need to be. It was a reflection of himself, his emotions, his desires. For the next few weeks, Daniel balanced his life between his demanding legal career and his rediscovered passion for painting. He'd stay late at the office, work on complex cases, and meet clients, but when he returned home, the canvas awaited him like an old friend. Painting became his solace, his escape from the pressure-filled world of corporate law. He began to feel more alive, more connected to himself than he had in years. The spark that had once driven him in his legal career was reignited, but now it burned for something deeper, something personal. Yet, Daniel's two worlds, law and art, were at odds with one another. The high-stakes demands of his profession left little time for creative expression. As much as painting filled his heart, his work at the firm consumed his life. One night, as he stared at a half-finished painting, Daniel began to realize that he couldn't sustain this double life forever. His law career, which had once brought him so much pride, now felt like a cage. The golden handcuffs of success bound him to a life that no longer fulfilled him. The turning point came when Daniel was asked to take on a massive case, one that would secure his promotion to senior partner at the firm. It was everything he had worked for, the culmination of decades of hard work. But as he sat in the office of his managing partner, listening to the details of the case, all Daniel could think about was the unfinished painting waiting for him at home. The passion for law that had once driven him had faded, replaced by a deeper, more personal yearning. That night, Daniel didn't return home to celebrate the case or prepare for the long hours ahead. Instead, he stood in front of his painting and thought about the life he truly wanted. The hidden passion of his heart, the artist in him, had been awakened, and it was no longer content to be hidden away. He realized that while the law had given him success, it had also taken from him something far more valuably: his sense of purpose, his connection to his true self. Daniel knew what he had to do, though it terrified him. Walking away from his career would mean giving up everything he had worked for: his status, wealth, the respect of his peers. But staying would mean continuing to live a life that wasn't his own. The next morning, Daniel walked into his boss's office and resigned. It was the most difficult decision he had ever made, but as he left the firm for the last time, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Over the following months, Daniel dedicated himself to painting. It wasn't easy financially, he had to adjust to a simpler life, and there were moments of doubt when he questioned his decision. But every time he stood in front of a canvas, he knew he had made the right choice. His paintings began to reflect the journey he had been on, the struggle between obligation and passion, the search for meaning, the beauty of rediscovering oneself. In time, Daniel's work began to attract attention. An art gallery offered to showcase his paintings, and soon, what had once been a hidden passion became his new career. But for Daniel, the success of his art wasn't measured in money or recognition. It was measured in the sense of fulfillment he felt every day, the joy of living a life true to himself. The hidden passions of our heart, though often buried beneath the demands of society, career, and expectations, never truly disappear. True fulfillment comes not from external success but from following the passions that stir our souls. Sometimes, we must have the courage to let go of what the world deems important in order to pursue what truly matters to us. In doing so, we discover not only ourselves but a deeper, more meaningful way of living. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.